Hey guys, welcome in. We're going to give you guys just about 30 seconds or so to come on in and get settled while we wait for everybody to kind of join today. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started today. Thank you guys for joining us today. We're here with the Mastering the Last Mile, speed, savings, and satisfaction with Linnworks and ShipStation. So thanks for joining us and learning all about these tips and tricks that we have. So today, my name is Mady Mitchell. I'm partner account manager for Linnworks, and I have joining me Cody from ShipStation. Cody, you want to give yourself a little bit of a run through of who you are and what you do for ShipStation for me?
Yeah, Mady, thanks so much for having us. I'm Cody DeArmond here at ShipStation. My team has the pleasure of working with hundreds of thousands of merchants to help grow their business by optimizing their shipping operations. So we do that with our shipping software. It's kind of our expertise across the industry. I'm sure we'll get into that more today, but excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, my name is Mady. I'm the partner account manager at Linnworks. I work with the ShipStation crew over there. I've been working with them for the past 4 years. Love the team. Always great to talk to you guys. So let's go ahead and kind of kick it off with what we're going to talk about today. So some of the things we want to talk about with shipping in general is rising expectations, that Amazon effect of kind of how things are kind of implementing and what the customers is, how we can improve the efficiencies of the different things that we can do within our businesses via shipping and different things, and automation. Automation is the key word, and there is a difference between the automation and AI. So I want to make sure we kind of touch on automation and what that really can do for your business, especially when it comes to shipping and rules engines and things like that. And then customer satisfaction, how that really drives success, how that shipping strategy can come into play and make a lifelong customer, not just a one-time customer. And then how Linnworks and ShipStation, of course, work together, what the advantages, why we work so well together, and that better together advantage. So let's jump straight into all of this. The new reality of the rising customer expectations. That's where we're starting this thing out, because we all know that I'm guilty of it myself. When I go to order something, I'm clicking on something, I'm looking, I want to know when it's going to get to me, because I either A, need it right away. So that's why I buy things on Amazon a lot, or, B, I'm okay with waiting for that little bit. So walk us through a little bit of this, Cody, what these expectations are and different things, and how it kind of affects the different generations of how they're really playing it into this.
Yeah, Mady, you're spot on here. And so one of the cool parts about working with ShipStation is the number of merchants that we get to work with across all the different channels and all the different verticals gives us a lot of interesting insights to kind of a cross cut of the industry. What you said is spot on here. We'll be able to share a lot of this data here, but we've recently ran kind of a fresh survey here to make sure we have a pulse on both the merchant and the consumer expectations. What you said is exactly right. Majority of consumers now really expect their order to get there within 2 days. And only 35% of retailers are actually meeting that demand. The time that I've been here with ShipStation, even we've seen that expectation get drastically accelerated, right? 2014 when I started here, much more commonplace to maybe wait 3, 5 business days, a week or so. Exactly what you said is what's happening in the market. The Amazonification of consumer expectations. People largely expect to get that, if not tomorrow, within a couple days for sure. And so that can be exciting as a consumer when those demands are met, can be a little scary as a merchant, but the good news is there's some tools out there as well. Now, again, kind of a double-edged sword here. Good news is that for merchants who are able to meet those expectations, huge opportunity to drive repeat customers, increase in LTV. But if you're falling behind on that, it's likely that you're probably losing customers to your competition, especially if you're in a competitive space, fashion, supplements, especially really competitive niches where you got to stand out on this front to meet the customer expectation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you see that the generations kind of playing into this? That like back in the day, like I think it was normal for you to wait 2 weeks for something to get to you, and now it's like the expectations of that Gen X, that Gen Z, that it's different. It's accelerated it, correct?
Yeah, I'm gonna date myself a little bit here, but I see this play out in my own household, right? I've got a daughter that's about to approach junior high. It's completely foreign to her that something might take a week to get to our house. At this point, I think we have an Amazon package at our doorstep just about every day. So it's exactly what you mentioned. Now, of course, if this is a direct consumer merchant versus a marketplace, you may have a little bit of leeway there, but increasingly customers are expecting us to get here quickly, which, great for me as a customer, as a consumer, but, again, can be scary as a merchant, especially if you're starting out or you're a growing business. Maybe you don't have the benefit of scale yet. This can be kind of an intimidating piece. The other part is that it's kind of an extension of the customer experience, as we'll surely dig into here. It's not necessarily just that there's a stopwatch running, like it's building trust, it's reinforcing your brand, it's really, telling the consumer that, like, yeah, we're a legitimate operation. We've earned your business. We're going to deliver on that promise as well. Now, of course, that all sounds good and well, but it's probably not feasible, especially at a lower price point, to just ship everything express, right? In a
Yeah.
perfect world, of course, you just pick the fastest service, get it there as quick as your customer wants. But again, that can be tricky as well. Of course, generally speaking, the faster you ship, the higher you would expect that label cost to be. And then also, it can introduce things like, how quickly can you get something out the door? How quickly is your pick and pack process running? Like all of this factors in. But what we do see is that clock starts ticking really as soon as a customer hits checkout. One, they want some clarity even in the cart around when that package is going to be there. And then, of course, maybe even as important of how fast something gets there is that you're matching those expectations. So what you've promised in the cart is what's actually playing out in reality. Now, good news is we'll get into this a little bit, but you don't have to go at this alone. It's not quite as scary as it sounds. We've got some tips and tricks and a tool that can help you achieve this.
Yeah, believe me, Cody, I date myself as well. I remember sitting on the couch with my grandma looking at the JCPenney's catalog and placing the order on over the phone and stuff. So I've been there, done that, like, and it took several weeks and you were just hoping it would get there for you. So yeah, so talking about the cost of different things and how we can do that and how you're a great partner with being able to help optimize the cost and the efficiencies between us, let's jump right in and kind of go for it and see what are some of the ways that you can help with that cost savings for the merchants.
Yeah, so shameless plug here, but this is literally what ShipStation does, and this is what my team here in Austin, Texas, has the pleasure of working with merchants to set up all day, every day. So we talked about all of this. It sounds a little scary. How am I going to get this stuff out the door? How am I going to do it without breaking the bank, maintaining my margins? We've got some recommendations here. So first things first is that again, going back to when I started here, it was much more commonplace for you to have a long-standing relationship with one carrier. I've known my carrier rep for 10 years. He buys me tickets to the Rangers games here. That's who I ship all my stuff with. I know them, they know me, et cetera, which is all well and great. But what we really educate merchants on, and what we really strongly suggest, and really where we see the market going is, of course, just as there's the rise of multi-channel, getting your products out wherever you can, same thing, multi-carrier here, right? Uh, in the past, it used to be that working with multiple providers, several different carriers, meant that you're managing all these different systems, that you're jumping back and forth between one provider to the next to try and make these comparisons. Fortunately, that's no longer the case here. So what we're really doing, especially for maybe merchants who are, growing their business, or maybe not as mature in their journey, is educating on this piece that there are a ton of great providers in the space, and you'll often find that each of them have their own kind of specialty. So I really rarely ever recommend, yeah, go with this carrier all the time, typically based on your customers' needs, your product, how far you're shipping, again, that speed expectation. All of these providers that we partner with, they're all great at their own specific niches, right? And so what's really valuable for our merchant here to, again, maintain the customer trust, meet that expectation, but of course, doing it while maintaining your margins, is going to be have the ability to have multiple providers in one place. So you're able to get the best of all worlds, whether that's, hey, this customer is not expecting this for a while, so I'm going to go with my lowest cost option, or hey, this customer just paid for expedited shipping. I know they need it before a wedding that's coming up in 3 days. We got to get this there and meet that demand as well. No longer should you be jumping all over the place to do that. With a tool like ShipStation, you're going to be able to do all of this in one place at a really basic level. You could run a rate comparison, a delivery time comparison, and make a selection. At scale, typically we're working with merchants to automate all of that to make the best thing and the right thing happen automatically every time.
That's great. I know when we talk to a lot of our merchants and customers, that's what it is. They're trying to figure out what the best way to do that is. So recommending, multiple carriers definitely, I'm sure will help them. And then what about packaging and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I would say that's definitely one thing that we see as merchants scale and maybe become a little bit more educated in this space is that it's not just about, okay, I'm going to go find the cheapest carrier for the shipment. There's a lot of different ways that you can play with this, right? I'm sure you've all had the experience that I have. You order something small. I just, ordered my daughter a new pair of headphones. Showed up in a giant box, right? Kind of laugh at it at the time, but as a merchant, that's margins right there. So if you're not familiar, the carriers typically price, of course, weight, how fast you want it to get there, but then typically you're also going to have what's called dimensional pricing here as well, right? They're looking at length, width, height. On that front, I would challenge everyone listening today to kind of revisit that. Like if there is, generally speaking, if there's air in a box that you're shipping out, like that's probably margin that you just lost there. So, that could be looking at the box size. It could also be using a tool like ShipStation to automatically include your dimensions as well, right? So oftentimes, you're going to be able to, one, make more accurate comparisons, but two, probably find the best option by actually including dimensions as well. And that does not have to be that I'm, getting out my tape measure and plugging numbers in for every single shipment. You're going to be able to generally pull in dimensions from where you're selling, assign those to a product. And again, that's going to factor into this intelligence to where you can, again, at scale, automate all of this and have the right thing happen every time so that, your customer stays happy. But of course, you're maintaining your margins on this as well.
Yeah, I received a pair of my daughter's shoes the other day in a big giant box, and it just kind of I kind of shook my head at it, but and then you get the ones where it's stuffed to the brim, and I'm like, they're maximizing their dollar and they're maximizing their stuff there. So well done to those merchants who are kind of doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. So what's the next step in this? What's the next step in these cost savings?
Yeah, sure. So I mentioned it as well, but of course, again, going back to the start of my time here, much more common to use one carrier. Obviously, especially here in North America, we're all familiar with kind of big three. But again, they're great at what they do, great partners of ours. But you're starting to see the rise of much more niche providers, whether that's regional carriers, whether that is consolidators for international. There's a lot of services out there that it could honestly be a full-time job just trying to stay up to speed on all these new providers and all these services and what they're great at. Another piece here is that, again, with the rise of regionals, we're oftentimes working with merchants to look at where their deliveries are actually going, right? So, many people on the line are probably familiar, but a lot of these carriers are working across zones. And so just because you need to get something there really quickly does not necessarily mean that you're having to, for example, select an express shipment or pay for overnight or 2 day. We actually see a lot of our really successful merchants are also including their destination into kind of their automation criteria as well, right? So I'm here in Austin, Texas. I'm running my business. Maybe a customer selects express shipping, but then ShipStation picks up that, hey, actually, great news. This is just down the road here in Austin, or it's just up the road in Round Rock. Oftentimes, you're going to be able to meet those consumer expectations actually with an economy service based on where that is. Or it could mean that certain areas of the country are best served by regional providers, things along those lines. It sounds really complex. It's actually really not. When you work with a platform like ours and a team like ours, we help educate on this as well. Again, real quick learning curve, but then you're able to automate all of this. For example, I was talking to a merchant yesterday who said, hey, I'm here in Texas for all of my orders that are in Texas. Looks like I can actually get them there really quick, but also inexpensively with this particular service. So we just built in a simple if this, then that rule. Hey, if the delivery state is Texas and it's shipping from my warehouse here in Austin, let's automatically assign this service. Oftentimes that actually turns into a revenue driver as well. So if the customer is selecting express, as much as we love our different carrier partners, consumers typically aren't that loyal to a specific provider versus another. I know when I'm at checkout, I don't really care whether that's coming in a brown truck or a purple truck. I just want to know that it's getting there when I expect it to get there. And so the main thing is that you're able to meet those consumer expectations. If you do that, they're happy. If someone paid, extra, whatever your checkout setup may be, say you charge $10 for express shipping, but maybe you're able to find a low cost service that gets it there ahead of time, but it's for $5. Well, hey, great news, customer's happy, and you actually just added $5 of profit to that particular order. So there's a lot of creativity you can get here to both keep the customers happy, but also drive those costs down at the same time. So we really challenge merchants to revisit that. And good news is that we've got a ton of partners on this front, so that allows us to kind of bring the best of all worlds to our merchants here.
That's awesome. Options, options, options. It sounds like that's kind of what you're allowing them to pick and choose what they want. All right, so let's jump to one of my favorite topics, international shipping, because Linnworks is a very international company. We are global. We have a lot of people in the UK that use our products and stuff like that. And this is a hot topic these days. So let's dive into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one that I'm passionate about and that I definitely challenge our growing merchants on. It seems like a really scary thing if you haven't done it before. You're just like, I don't even know where to start. There's customs, there's duties, there's taxes. Of course, tariffs top everybody's mind now. It just seems like this big black box if you haven't done it before. Good news is it's not that scary, especially if you have a tool in place like this. Typically, the place that growing merchants or people that just haven't done it before gets a little hung up on is around obviously like customs duties, paperwork, especially like NSA codes and things like that. Great news here is we can do all of it for you automatically. So the typical workflow here is that once you have this set up, maybe it requires a few extra pieces of information that you load from your product catalog, but you do that once, and with a platform like ours, your international shipments largely work the same way a domestic shipment would. Now, of course, there's considerations to make. I would probably anticipate that a shipment coming from Europe might take me a little bit longer, but as long as that expectation is clear at checkout, this can be a huge driver for merchants. So it's not really a conversation around international shipping. It's actually more of a conversation around international selling, because I see merchants that haven't done it before are scared of that, and so they hesitate to even list or even advertise in those markets. They may have a huge untapped market. Like for us as an example, I have the pleasure of working with our Australia sales team as well. Like super popular in Australia, ShipStation is because one, it's actually a huge cross-border destination. So we see Australians are oftentimes ordering products from the US and vice versa. So my point there is that aside from it just being kind of scary or international shipping seeming expensive, challenge merchants to not limit themselves in the audience that could see their merchandise, because that could be a huge untapped market. And so first, get your product out there. Don't let this scary piece of it stop you from doing that. Second, with the right process in place, it really doesn't take much longer than a domestic shipment would. It's not that scary once you get it set up. And then third, my trepidation as a merchant would be, okay, is this going to be super expensive? Am I selling something for $30 and it's going to cost $30 to get it over there? Is a customer going to pay that? Am I going to eat that? What's the deal here? This is becoming much more commonplace, and there are way more providers in the space. So the traditional carriers have great offerings for this that you can certainly use. There's also consolidator products out there as well. If time is not of the essence, oftentimes you're able to take advantage of those services. We have a great service in Global Post that's really popular with our customers that are shipping cross-border as well. So can simplify and can really make this from a cost perspective certainly non-prohibitive, but can really actually maintain roughly the same margins as a domestic shipment would on this front. So yeah, a big challenge to our merchants who are looking to grow their business. Like, get yourself out there, work with a platform like ours that can make this process much less scary. And then as you get into it, you're probably going to find that, man, I wish I would have been doing this, a couple of years ago, because there's an untapped market here, and it's certainly not cost prohibitive anymore.
Yeah, and I actually was on the opposite spectrum. Like I wanted to order something, my husband ordered something from the UK, and it actually got here faster than something would have from the US, just because of where we're located, because we're near a UPS hub. And I was shocked that it took like 3 or 4 days for it to get here. I was like, holy cow, that was really, really fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely can surprise you these days. Definitely.
Absolutely.
So I want to touch on one of the main keywords here as we kind of go through. We've really talked about automation and how we can really automate this and what the advantage of it is and what it can do for the business. Because like you said it probably about 5 times, at least, if not more, just within that last little topic. So let's jump in right to this because it's one of my favorite things because people do use the word automation as a buzzword as well as AI. So let's dive in to see what really can it do for you.
Yeah, sure. So this is something I'm kind of a nerd about because this is what my team does all day, every day. And the way we explain it to merchant who maybe hasn't done it before is that we want you to get to the point where you log in for the morning, you've got 10,000 orders that need to go out the door, and all you do is hit select all and click print, and everything happens. Like I know that sounds hyperbolic, but that is actually what we see the most successful merchants getting to. And the good news is it really doesn't take nearly as much work to get to that point as you might think. So first things first, we're typically talking through with a merchant, like, how do you want this to work? Start at your in-cart journey. What is a customer selecting? A really common starting point for this. And again, what we're kind of talking about here is meeting that consumer expectation. That's the first piece, right? What options are you offering in cart to your customer? And then what are they selecting? And then we can kind of start working from there. Again, we can pretty much build any logic that's, that you can imagine into the system. But a lot of that is going to be focused around, okay, what do the customers select at checkout? Whether that's free shipping, where typically there's a little bit more leeway on time. Are they paying for express shipping? So that's kind of the first fork in the road that we look at there. And then the services kind of branch out from there. But the high level idea here is just if this, then that logic. Maybe it's a specific product line that is above a certain weight, and so that's best served by a specific carrier. Maybe it's that orders that customer paid express for need to get flagged. You need an alert on those because you know that those need to be picked, packed, ready to go out the door by the time that your delivery driver shows up at 3 o'clock this afternoon. So all of this to say that you can get a really complex operation going without a whole lot of manual intervention, needed here. And then the next piece on this is the error piece, right, as well. So hate to say it, but anytime that you miss that delivery promise or anytime that you ship something the wrong way or an order gets mispacked, like you probably just undermined your ability to get a repeat order from that customer. Now, you can certainly win that back, but it's going to be an uphill battle for you. So aside from just making sure that, you're shipping it the way that preserves your margins, really what we're trying to do is foolproof this so that the right thing happens every time without you really having to think about it too much, right? So aside from just printing labels quickly, getting orders out the door, aside from consumer confidence, the other piece is that let's say you're at scale, right? Let's say maybe you're a merchant who on a typical day, you've got 100 orders that go out the door. If you have a warehouse worker or you're processing these orders yourself and you accidentally select a wrong, more expensive service once, twice a day, right? That doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but over the course of a week, over the course of the month, over the course of the year, that turns
Mhm.
into tens of thousands of dollars of just purely forfeited margin. And I know it seems like a small thing, but the difference in assigning the right service every single time versus a 2, 3, 4, 5% error rate on that front, it really, really starts to stack up. And in today's environment, we know that every little piece adds up. So that's the second piece here is that we're really trying to foolproof this for you.
Yeah, I mean, errors is one of the big things we hear about too with automation is people wanting to save time with the errors because anytime you have a human involved, there's errors that can happen, especially in the picking process. Both of our systems do a great job with being able to reduce those errors and being able to have processes in place to make things faster, especially in the warehouse, because ultimately that's where it's won. And you touched on something, and we're going to go ahead and kind of jump to that next section of if you miss that delivery date, how to build the trust, how to keep and retain the loyalty, being proactive in this, and what are some tips and tricks of being able to communicate this to yours. I was on that side not too long ago. I reached out to somebody and was like, hey, it said it shipped and it still hasn't moved out of your warehouse and it's been a week. So help me out here. And me being in the job that I'm in, I understand the process. I understand what's going on. But being able to be very transparent in that communication and stuff like that.
Yeah, so some really interesting data on this front. I thought maybe that just because I'm in this space, maybe I'm a weirdo about it. We ran the data. Turns out everybody's like me. Everybody gets that email that says, "Hey, here's your order. Maybe it's being shipped or it's on the way." That is one of the highest engagement pieces of your customer journey. And so, two things. One, we really challenge merchants to think of that as an extension of their brand, possibly even an upsell opportunity. But at bare minimum, we would suggest that a merchant, whenever possible, now certainly there's nuance here. Certain marketplaces have certain restrictions and things along those lines. But especially if this is a direct to consumer channel, like really revisit this piece. So there's the speed, there's a consumer expectation, but then there's also the branding consistency. And this is all an extension of the really the customer experience. So we have tools in place as part of our platform, especially when you integrate with a great platform like Linnworks. You can handle this from all of your different channels where you're driving sales and have this be a really consistent, really polished process. But typically we see less educated merchants are oftentimes just defaulting to directing this traffic to a carrier page, right? We've all got the email, get it, you get excited, you click your tracking link, and then it links you over to a carrier site, which is fine. It probably gets you the information, but you essentially just handed off the eyeballs that you worked really hard to gain and drive to your site and drive the sale. You just handed those off to another company that, of course, they want to know where their stuff is, but I mean, candidly, linking out to that carrier page doesn't really do anything for you as a merchant. So first things first, like you can really easily have this be a branded page where it's an extension of your brand. You can even get creative, drive upsells, drive loyalty rewards, things along those lines. But at a bare minimum, you got to be clear around your expectation. This is going to be a little thing, but it's made a big difference for a lot of our merchants. We oftentimes found that exactly what you mentioned plays out a lot. In the industry, we call it WISMO. Where's my order? It's like a huge driver of support tickets, which again sounds like a little thing, but as your business scales on aggregate, that actually turns into a pretty big cost center, right? Just by setting something like this up intelligently, we've seen merchants that have driven down their WISMO inquiries, like literally made their support teams' lives easier by like 50% just off a clear communication. That can be one, just having a clean email that looks like an extension of your brand. You can even set that up to have it trigger when it actually hits the mail stream. Probably all got the email, click the link, you get excited, and then it's like, your label has been created. And you're like, okay,
Hmm.
well, that doesn't really tell me much else. So you can get really intelligent around this, having clear communication to the consumer that you worked so hard to win. Have this be an extension of your brand, have it be clear for them. Again, every touch point here is kind of building trust and is, not just getting a box to their door. It's really setting up the stage for the next order that hopefully they're going to come back and buy from you again.
Yeah, it can be a pain to get being a consumer, like, to have all those emails, but at the end of the day, it's peace of mind for me to be like, okay, my package is coming, and I really appreciate the extra communication because I would rather be over communicated to than not communicated to at all. So yeah, it sounds like that most people are in the same boat that we are.
Exactly, exactly right.
Yeah, that's good to hear then. So the reason we're both here, why do we work so well together? Why are our systems complementary to each other? And what's the advantage kind of thing of that single source of truth between us here?
Yeah, absolutely. So you heard my challenge earlier about like get yourself out there into new
Mhm.
markets. This is what we see here as well. So good news is people are kind of taking my advice, and we see overwhelming majority of merchants are trying to get into new markets, whether that's international, whether that's standing up just a new selling channel. Now, again, if you don't have a really strong platform in place like Linnworks connected with ShipStation, this can seem scary, right? Like it could be like, oh man, like launching on a new marketplace is basically doubling my work for the day. Good news is like a really low amount of upfront investment here. Again, just as I mentioned that an international shipment can feel really similar to a domestic shipment, like we really encourage merchants to experiment, try and get their orders out there to as many channels as possible. Platform like Linnworks makes all of this super seamless, right? So you can have all of this in one place, just as you're no longer jumping around carrier to carrier to carrier. You shouldn't be logging into different selling channels every day, right? You should have your single source of truth, and you should have that integrated with a platform that talks seamlessly. So the most successful merchants that we see here are businesses who have set up a multi-channel platform here. Of course, they're keeping a single source of record on their inventory. They're able to experiment, get their product out in front of more customers in different places to see maybe where they can drive traction. And then, of course, on our end, once they've won that order, you want to have something in place that can handle all of that, can ingest all the intelligent information from Linnworks to help you make informed decisions, can help drive automation. Again, sounds like an exaggeration, but a lot of the merchants that we work with, again, I know it's middle of summer, it's 100 degrees here in Texas, but like whether we want to admit it or not, peak is right around the corner. We are already talking to merchants who are getting all of this in place to make sure that they're ready for, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And so if you put this in place, not only are you able to experiment by getting your product out in front of more channels, you're actually able to scale without just throwing headcount and more costs at it. Sounds like an exaggeration. I've worked with customers who have gotten up to like million, 2 million, 3 million shipments a month around peak, and they've done it without increasing their staff, right? Or maybe they're able to just bring in, temporary workers because they're not having to reteach all of these systems. They're not having to give them a big, thick playbook of do X, Y, Z. Really, if you get this stack in place, regardless of how big your volume gets, you're able to have your team say, hey, log into ShipStation in the morning, hit select all, click print. At that point, we've got your orders ready to go. Your labels are printing out. The tail end of the process, we're communicating back the tracking information to where it needs to go. So you're able to really grow your business without necessarily having to grow your operation.
Yeah, and I echo everything you kind of said. With Linnworks is connected to over 100 different marketplaces and platforms. We're able to get your products up there and listed to more places, selling more places internationally. Over in the UK, maybe in Australia, all the places that ShipStation support. They support carriers there, for you to be able to really get your stuff there and get your inventory into more places, your product to more places there. And then, leveraging that warehouse feature that we have within it. And like you said, you got 100 orders in a day. You need, this is more than you're used to. You use the warehouse features that we have to be able to set it on a correct pick wave so that you can pick more faster, quicker, and your labels are printed out. You're killing it. You're hitting that goal and you're getting your stuff out there. So
Yeah,
our systems together help you grow your GMV and keep up, and it allows you not to have to add more people. I know we had a quote somewhere that it said that they implemented it before peak season, so they were going to their first peak season, and normally they have to work through the weekends, and it was the first year that they didn't have to work through their weekends to make sure that they had to keep up because the systems were in place that they were able to automate so much more. Fulfill multiple channel fulfillment, fulfilling out of multiple warehouses, all that stuff is all capable and able for you to scale even larger with our systems together.
Yeah, you can definitely always tell when a ShipStation merchant is working with Linnworks because them getting on Shark Tank or Good Morning America or Flash
Yep.
Sale where their volume doubles overnight is not scary to them. They're like, okay, cool, like great news, more sales. We're gonna go about our business. You touched on it, but it ties back to like don't limit yourself, whether that's carriers, markets, countries that you're selling to. Same thing on the inventory piece. Like our merchants that are working with Linnworks helps them avoid stockouts. They've got really great up-to-date information that allows them to keep selling as opposed to maybe the merchant who doesn't have all of this in place. They're afraid of overselling, or maybe they don't even know. And so, on either end of the spectrum, they're either missing out on sales because they delisted something because they're afraid they're going to run out of it, or they're degrading their customer trust because they sold them something and then sorry, actually we're out of stock and that's back ordered and we're going to get it to you in 6 weeks instead of 48 hours. So yeah, big fan of our partnership and our integration for the merchants that are looking to grow, whether that's more channels, more markets. Like this stack is going to set you up for success for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. The overstocks, I hear it, and I've been on both ends of that. So absolutely. So just want to recap a little bit. If you want to get in touch with either one of us, be sure to scan those QR codes, go straight to one of us or straight to our systems to be able to kind of learn more about us. But I kind of want to go over some key takeaways before we hop into some of these, the Q&A a little bit here. Just making sure that you're being aware of what you're doing and that you're, utilizing the regional carriers, your multi carriers, not just sticking to one, the old trusty, because that you might be, not getting the best out of for your revenue at the end for the end of the day. Automation, use automation rules, make sure they're in there, make sure that you're able to set things up. At the end of the day, it's your business. Get time back in your day, get time back and get get it in your business. You're going to save money at the end of the day by implementing systems like ours to be able to do more quicker, because that automation is set in place. You don't have to have somebody sit there and press 10 different buttons to get one result. Be proactive with the customers, be making sure that you're communicating with everybody, making sure that everything's kind of going through all this. And then, making sure you have your systems in place, that tech stack is very important, all the way from the beginning to what marketplaces you're selling on, to the middleware that helps you kind of get your inventory out, all that kind of stuff, to printing your label and making sure you're getting the best carrier rates and things for the fastest, the cheapest, whether it's ground and you have to go ground for certain reasons because of the product, making sure you have all that kind of stuff in place. So thank you for everything you kind of said here today. We're going to go into a little bit of Q&A here. Let's see. I'm scrolling. I'm the one that said don't scroll when we set all this up. So one of the questions that I do kind of want to ask you is, what are you seeing as a trend for AI and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. So in our space in particular, I know we've said a lot today, and if you haven't done it before, some of it sounds scary. For us, this largely means two things. One, as we touched on, making sure that the right thing happens every time, regardless. And then the second is making informed decisions where you don't necessarily have to be a shipping or even an e-commerce expert at this point. And so, again, benefit working with platforms like ours is that you're really getting to benefit from kind of this aggregate knowledge of this giant customer base. You're no longer just trying to incorporate the best practices that you heard about from a friend or that you read about on modern retail. You're able to pull kind of best practices from across the platform. And that's what my team works with merchants to do. That's a lot of what you're benefiting from in a platform like ShipStation, is having this automation, having kind of this aggregate knowledge and best practices automatically happen in your account. So for us, that shows up in a few different ways. Could be intelligent automated carrier choice, making sure that the appropriate service is selected for that particular package, depending on any number of factors. And then, of course, things like time factors. Of course, wouldn't expect anyone here to have off the top of their head the knowledge of like, okay, this particular carrier is going to get a 2-pound package from, Austin to Des Moines in this amount of time. All of that is going to happen for you automatically with a stack like this in place. So yeah, I would say generally speaking, it's tapping into maybe the lesser known resources, whether that's a new market, whether that's maybe a regional carrier that you hadn't heard of before. The good news is with the rise of platforms like ours, artificial intelligence, you really no longer have to spend a ton of time getting up to speed on this. You should essentially outsource that expertise to platforms like ours. And the good news is that's what we're passionate about here. That's what we do all day long.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Any questions for our direction?
Yeah, I guess question that we have merchants often ask us, which of course, we're a party to, but I would expect that y'all are much more the experts on this front. It's like, hey, my friend said that they launched on XYZ channel, or like, hey, this is my product vertical. I'm interested in getting out to more places. Like, do you have any other channels that you would recommend? I guess, what is y'all's recommendation for a merchant who, maybe they've got some traction, but maybe up till now, they've only sold on their own website or a popular marketplace. They're kind of looking to get out there more. Again, kind of back to my international theme. If you haven't done it before, it seems a little scary. I guess kind of what's y'all's take when a merchant comes to you with that, where they're trying to drive more sales without necessarily adding complexity?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we always like to say know your market, or know who you're selling to. So a lot of times people are starting to tap into the TikTok, tap into being able to do the social selling. So that's a lot of it. But if you're selling to a different generation, you got to make sure you're getting into those type of marketplaces. Make sure you're getting into maybe a Macy's, maybe a Nordstrom, depending on where you're wanting to sell. If you sell arts and crafts, maybe Michael's, something like that. Being able to really expand and being able to go into that. The other thing I would say is, like you said, international. At Linnworks, we do have a large international base, especially in the UK. And we've got the connections to be able to get you set up on someone like a Tesco or a B&Q, or if you're selling refurbished, the refurbished market is a lot larger in other countries than in ours. So that's where we really see the explosion, especially with repurposing and people being more cognizant of technology and being more cognizant of the environment and sustainability. that's been a big area of people's influx of being able to get to more channels. So yeah.
Love it. Great
Um,
advice.
yeah, so one of the questions that we did have come in was elaborating on implementation time to integrate the systems for some people. And I can kind of speak to that a little bit, and you can speak to the ShipStation side. But implementation, if you're not on Linnworks yet, it usually takes anywhere from about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on where you're selling, how many rules you want, different things like that. And then integrating with ShipStation is fairly easy. You just kind of add it in and make sure everything's set up in ShipStation, and it feeds right back to us. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know this is going to sound like an exaggeration, but once you've got your setup in place with our partners at Linnworks, your Linnworks to ShipStation connection is going to take you more like 6 to 8 minutes. So it's essentially, if you've got your credentials, you're going to be able to add that as a store to ShipStation. All that data is going to flow seamlessly in. Now, of course, you're going to have experts here on my team that are at your disposal to help you build in some of this kind of advanced expertise. But again, even that is not nearly as scary as it sounds. A lot of it is if this, then that logic. We'll work with you to get that in place. But yeah, the Linnworks to ShipStation connection couldn't be more seamless. It can be self-serve. We'll be here to help you with it. But just to make sure I was up to speed, I reread the documentation on connecting those before we hopped on here today. Not exaggerating, that'll probably take you 5 minutes or less to set up that connection. And then typically building out, a fully formed ShipStation account if you're brand new to it. We have experts here on our end, but we most frequently see that a 1 hour implementation call has you up and running and ready for as many orders as you can possibly drive.
Yeah, and then another question we had here is how does Linnworks and ShipStation stay up to date on the ever-changing carrier rates and international shipping regulations?
Yeah, sure. So outsource that headache to us, right?
Yes.
The last thing that you want to be doing is like maintain carrier certifications. A lot of the merchants we work with don't have developers on staff to write direct API integrations. Good news is this is what we do. We've done it for a really long time. So I've been here with ShipStation 11 years. There are experts doing it before me. Broader Octane has been doing this since the 90s. So this is what we do. We've got staff that exclusively stays up to speed on this stuff, whether that's integrations, whether that's new services. We partner really closely with all of these carriers, just as we do with partners like Linnworks. And so I would like to think that we are the preeminent experts on this space. So we're speaking daily with our carrier partners. Oftentimes, we're going to know changes that are coming before it may even
Mhm.
hit the market. This is what we do. And so great news here is that all of this is going to happen automatically. There's no changes really that you're having to make as carrier launches a new service or they update their rate table for the holiday season. Candidly, you're not going to know the difference in ShipStation because it just happens. And so, that's what we do. We've got a large team of experts on this front. That should be a headache that we take off your plate, today if we haven't already.
Yeah, okay. That's why we partner with you guys, is because we don't want to have to deal with that and the headaches and things like that. So we partner with aggregators to be able to do that for us so we don't have to. Last question here, because this kind of hits close to my heart. Does the automation extend to return labels and return merchandise authorizations through that RMA process, primarily taking the manual portion out of it, kind of?
I love this question. Again, this is kind of one of those things that typically we see the light bulb go off, especially for like growing merchants, is like, oh man, I've been doing this like one by one. There is a better way. So yeah, we handle the full cycle of this process as well. There's several different ways you can set it up. Of course, some merchants want to be more hands-on and authorize a return one by one. Other verticals, the expectation may be that 20% of orders get returns, things along those lines. So short answer is yes, we handle all of that. Longer answer is we often work with merchants to educate on this piece as well, because the most successful merchants, of course, there's no way around it. A return hurts. Like it feels like you just lost the profit of an order that you worked so hard to win. But a couple things. One, doing it well, again, is an extension of the customer experience. I would challenge merchants to not just think about this as a loss. It's really an investment in your next order. Like if you handle this process well, you see a drastic uptick in LTV from that customer. If you
Mhm.
make it a headache, if they have to send a manual email, if they have to call into your team, like chances are you're probably never going to see that customer again. If you make it really seamless, yeah, you're probably going to feel the sting of like eating the profit on that one order, but you might have just set yourself up for four more from that customer because you just instilled that trust. The second piece is that we've rolled out tools that actually encourage exchanges as well, as opposed to just returns. So oftentimes we see that consumers are getting to that spot where like, oh, I don't actually like, dislike this brand. I actually still want this product. I just maybe want a different size. Or, maybe it's an opportunity that I want something else from this platform. Get actually, just as I mentioned with the tracking page, can be an opportunity for upsell. Your returns process can be as well. So we see really successful merchants getting creative around crediting or discounts to incent exchanges over just outright returns. But again, even though in the short run it feels like maybe a little bit of a hit, I challenge merchants to think about this holistically. And again, even though everything I just said maybe sounds a little complex at face value, Linnworks and ShipStation can handle all of this pretty much automatically.
Yeah, definitely can help with that returns module, the returns function of getting everything back into your system to see if it's sold or tracking it as damaged, whatever you may need help with that. Yeah, definitely the two of us together. And I'm a queen of returns. So if you make it easy for me, you're gonna get me as a loyal person. So
Exactly.
did it the other day, exchanged something, and it was super seamless because they had a platform set up for it. And you're gonna have me back. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Cody, for joining me today. I greatly appreciate the conversation. Learned so much, as always, when I chat with anyone from ShipStation. So appreciate your time today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much for having us. And if anybody wants to nerd out on this with me a little more, I'm old enough around here that they let me keep my vanity email, Cody at ShipStation. I'm easy to find.
Nice. And if you want to scan for more information, scan one of those QR codes. Have a great day. Enjoy, everyone out there. And thank you so much for joining us again in this last mile.
Thank y'all.